I'm here with myself. Oh, hold on. Let me just make this sound better. All right, that sounds better. No, it doesn't. Oh, no, it does. Okay, never mind. Yeah, look at that smooth start as usual with the Only Scott. Yeah, I'm just here with myself today, guys. How fun. Haven't done this in a long time. Probably been about a year and a half. Oh, maybe even 2 years since I've done a solo podcast episode. I haven't done one in a very long time. I wanted to do this because there's been quite a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and there's been a lot of changes just kind of in my life in general. The Only Scott podcast is done. Nah, not done yet. Not done yet. I've just been thinking a lot about where the podcast is currently as we're heading to the end of 2025, and I feel like I need to make some changes. And a part of the changes I want to make is just thinking about the format and how I've been doing it for a while. So it depends on when part of the journey you've joined along. So now the Only Scott podcast has been going on since April 2023. So that's 2.5 years ago. Initially, it's a bit of background for maybe some who don't know. The podcast used to be called Only Scots. There was myself and another Scott. His name was Scotty Squire. Unfortunately, he had to leave due to some personal reasons. No beef between us or anything like that. It was just more, he just couldn't continue it, which was a bit unfortunate. And then I've been going and doing this ever since. And it's been a bit of a ride because it's all been on my own accord, right? And I'm not here to be like, oh, it's so hard. Oh, doing podcasts is so difficult. Oh. It's not that. It can be a pain in the ass, but I wouldn't say it's not like oh, it's so hard. That's not true. But what I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about, or people who follow me, people who are interested, is the podcast has come a long way in the last year. I'm very proud of what I've achieved with it, and I'm very proud of a lot of people who've been collaborating and who've been coming on. We've had awesome guests, a whole range of guests. I mean, for a long time, there was a lot of musicians coming on this podcast, and I still have had musicians on kind of across the last year. Still had quite a few. What I've noticed is not just musicians, but even some other guests. I've had a couple of repetitive guests. Not that there's really anything wrong with that. It just means that you just kind of, are bringing people on to talk about whether it be something that they're about to do in the next month, like a release or something in a promotional way. And that's fine. But I think for myself, looking at it, it's getting a little stale. And I had a look at all of the podcasts I've done since I've done the Only Scott podcast. I think at this very moment when I'm making this, I've done 87 or 88 podcasts. That's a lot. I'm not at 100 yet, but we're almost there, which I will definitely get to. But what I want to say is I can't just keep repeating the guests, some of the guests on often. And even within the same year or something. And that's also on myself. That's also on me. And like I said, doesn't mean it's a really bad thing. It just means for myself, I have been looking at this. If I want to progress this podcast more, I would rather not do that. And I think it gets a little boring. Well, not boring, but just repetitive. And also looking at music. So this podcast has now become a lot more than... I never started this podcast to do music, by the way. Initially, the whole premise of this podcast was to have some fun. I started this podcast with my friend Scotty Squire. We were just chatting heaps of shit in the beginning. The reason why it kind of became more into the music space for a while was because that's the people we knew. We used to be in a band together long time ago now. And we have done a lot of musical projects together over the years. And so a lot of people who we knew were from that space. And then we also kind of had our own discussions and chats about our musical journeys and sort of our opinions on things in the industry, etc. And it's been really great because it's been meeting a lot of people in the local scene, been meeting a lot of people kind of in different parts of the industry, whether that be in like the filmography or photography, or people involved in some labels, and different kinds of rock and metal and alternative acts, which has been cool, and I don't regret any of it. But I do have to look at sort of what am I looking into the future to do with this podcast. As some of you may know, if you listen to this podcast regularly, you always hear myself at one point having my own little ad in here about Infinity Sleep, my business. So that's been going for about a year as well. So the business has started after the podcast. And what that means for me is like the podcast is now another way for me to get to get myself out there, even with my business. I've also had a sleep therapist on. Shout out Bruno Petre, he's the man. But I had him on as well, and hopefully going to do some more content with him in the future as well, maybe not just podcasts. But the podcast has grown a lot more from what I initially started it to be. I didn't really know where I was going with it. I thought it would be really cool to just talk to lots of people from all sorts of places. And I feel like I've kind of done that. There does seem to be some trends, obviously. I mean, there's no strange if you're no stranger to the podcast. You know, I'm a fan of the UFC and MMA, and so I've had quite a few fighters on here, from King of the Ring champions, Michael Isaac being a big one too. I've also had Jackie Chan on here. I've also had Saran Drummy, if I said that name right. Alejandro Tellez, and I've had a bunch more, and I've got some more coming in future, and I really love talking to those guys and gals, to be honest. If any girls who are MMA or in the combat sports space, that's also really cool too. I'd love to talk to you too. Because it's a very, I don't know, there's something very captivating about people who do those kind of, what you would think is quite a crazy sport to participate in, and I really enjoy that. But yes, like I said, there's been some trends on the podcast, obviously with my interests. But I just kind of for future, I want to be a little more intentional, and I don't enjoy using the word strategic, but it's going to be a bit more strategic. I want to try and grow my personal brand and grow the podcast, and by that also grow the business. And I'm just going to be honest with you guys, like that's what I'm planning to do with this. So does that mean I will never do music podcasts again? It doesn't mean that. It means that I just won't do them as frequently, and I'm going to be a lot more particular with who I have on, and more intentional, I think, rather than just promoting a band. That's not to say I will never have another band on again. That's not to say I'll never have another solo artist again. It just means I need to change it up for a bit. For those who may be following me, who might have found this podcast potentially from LinkedIn as well. So I also do a lot of things on LinkedIn. I post a lot about my business and kind of different events I go to, and sort of trying to build personal brand. And I recommend everybody to do this, by the way, just in general. I think we're at a time now, this is a big topic, but I'll try and just keep this short, where I think if you're looking at your career, or you're looking at your job, or where you want to head in life, maybe it is to own a business one day or work for yourself, be a contractor, personal brand is so valuable. I can only recommend it. I highly recommend that you invest in yourself in that way. So that could be another whole talk as well. But I also do a lot of stuff on there too, with my own kind of content, personal branding, and things like that, and talk about my business. So if you're interested, you can check that out too. That'd be very cool. I'm going to probably be doing a bit more collaboration between a podcast, my podcast, and maybe my LinkedIn and business-orientated content. But I'm still yet to figure that out. The other thing I am trying to figure out for more content in the future is... Oh, brain fart. I have found that, like, I'm kind of at this point at the end of this year, which is something I should have mentioned earlier, I'm getting a bit burnt out. So I'm getting a bit, like, tired of it. And it's not so, and I've said this before previously, and I've even touched on this in podcasts. I'm not tired of podcasting, talking to people. I'm just tired of the overall, like, production of the editing and having to spend, which you have to do. And again, podcast's so hard. Oh, your life's so hard, Scott. But it's just, if I want to keep doing this and to have great conversations and talk to lots of people and hopefully provide value to people, I gotta like that part too. Like, I can't just be like, oh yeah, I'm just slugging away at this editing, and it does get in the way of a lot of things, and to be honest. So I'm gonna take a break as well. So in January, I'm gonna be taking a month off, which I think will be really valuable for me to just take a bit of a chill. There will be an episode and some other bits dropping in January. I may even drop like a little solo one. So maybe the podcast will still be going, but I am taking a bit of a break because, like I said, I'm getting a bit tired. I'm getting a bit burnt out with it, and I don't want to like throw this away because I've done so much with this podcast, and it's actually helped me so much in so many ways, and I've connected with so many amazing people, and I don't ever want to stop that. But gotta be real, like you got to take some time, otherwise something like this will become a burden, and I'm just going to be like, fuck this. And I don't want to get to that. So that's just kind of where my head's at anyway. But yeah, so that's kind of all the news I really wanted to tell. I mean, something that's been amazing as well, like I was actually looking at my numbers across my platforms, especially like Instagram, YouTube, even TikTok. TikTok is a crazy one. I think I've increased my follower count. I think the beginning of this year it was like 150. I'm at 650 now, which is like, what the hell? Some of these might sound like small numbers to people, but to me, these are big numbers. As well, like I also, like my Instagram doubled the followers, and my YouTube has doubled in a year. So we're still small time. I don't obviously have 200,000 subscribers on YouTube or anything crazy like that. And they're not crazy huge numbers, but I'm just kind of looking back being like, wow, I've actually like doubled everything. Growth, scale. But it's been pretty cool. And I'm hoping that, I don't know, keep up the growth, or maybe the growth will be stagnant for a bit because I'm making some changes. On that note, while coming up with changes, something else I've learned about this podcast while I've been doing it is it took me a while to figure out what I was trying to achieve with this podcast. Like, what am I trying to do with it, really? Like, what's really the message of this? Because it's just kind of like some dude talking to a bunch of people, right? And it's like, well, what is that? Like, what is Scott actually doing in the podcast? Like, what's he actually trying to, like, he doesn't have a niche, really. He's not doing just, like, one particular subject, one particular vertical. But what I figured out, and took a while, 2.5 years to figure out, is that this podcast is for the dream chasers. That's actually what this podcast is for. And that's what I've learned. A lot of people who come on here who are trying to make something happen in their lives that's bigger than, I guess, the status quo. Let's put it that way. And that, to me, has been quite a revelation in some way for myself, to figure out that that's actually what this podcast is for. It's for the dream chasers. So I chat to the dream chasers. That's what I do on this podcast. And it sounds cheesy. Fuck you. That's what this podcast is. I am breaking that stupid New Zealand tall poppy syndrome stuff. And I know that the way that things are going at the moment, especially in New Zealand, and that's not to say I won't have any international people on. I also would love that. But, for most of the guests, pretty well, all the guests I've had, 90% have been from New Zealand. And one thing I really want to get better at with this is to basically say, there's a lot of amazing people in New Zealand trying to do amazing things. And I feel like the culture is slowly changing from that tall poppy, like, you can't do that. You think you're better than us? You should just stick to the norm. You should just do that. Why are you trying to do something different? Etc., etc., etc. And I've heard that my whole fucking life. And I imagine a lot of people who listen or are watching this have also seen this as well. And I'm just like, fuck that shit. Like, it's time to actually, like, you got to get some balls. And I probably need to start, practicing what I preach a bit, and maybe getting a bit more out there as well, and a bit more ballsy. It's been a bit of a crazy 2 years. A lot in my life has developed and changed from when I initially started this podcast. It's been a lot, but it's been amazing, and I wouldn't take any of it back. It's just a podcast, Scott. Calm down. What do you think's really hadn't changed in the world, cunt? But yeah, so I just want to say this is very typical, but thank you guys so much for supporting this. Again, this is all done out of my own pocket, on my own back. I don't have any extra help. I mean, I have help from people who I have on in terms of, helping get the podcast out there and people helping sharing it and a lot of support. So I appreciate all that. But like I said, if you want to get down to the production and the actual inward workings of this, then it's all myself. But like I said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to take a little break for about a month and just going to be chilling out a little bit. And there will be some changes for this podcast. Nothing crazy, but just some little changes. And there'll be some different focuses next year. Thank you guys so much again for being a part of it. I look forward to seeing you guys round. Don't be afraid to send me a DM or a message or something. I'm not that scary at all. Bit of a bitch. Nah, I'll fuck you up. So yeah, thank you guys, and hey, let's crush 2026. Let's go.